Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to Soul Stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to join our family. Stay with us, because a new love story is about to begin. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under my door like an afterthought. I found it when I came home from the lumberyard, my hands still rough with sawdust, my shoulders aching from lifting beams all day. The Harvest Festival dance, Saturday evening, Town Hall. Someone had written my name on the envelope in hurried script, almost illegible. Elijah Crane, like they had to remind themselves who I was before sealing it. I knew why they invited me. Old Widow Patterson had counted heads for the seating arrangement and come up short. She needed warm bodies to fill the chairs so her carefully planned tables would not look empty. I was convenient. I lived close enough. I would not cause trouble. I almost threw the invitation into the fire. Almost. But something stopped my hand. Some stubborn flicker of loneliness that refused to let me give up completely on being part of this town. I had lived in Copper Springs for 3 years now, ever since I left everything behind in Missouri. I built homes for other people, fixed their fences, raised their barns, but I remained invisible to them. The quiet carpenter who lived in the small cabin at the edge of town, the man with sad eyes who never talked about his past. They did not know about Sarah. They did not know about the fever that took her 2 weeks after our wedding. They did not know that I had buried my heart in that Missouri ground and walked west until my legs gave out. Copper Springs was where I stopped walking. It was not home. Nowhere would ever be home again. But I kept the invitation. Saturday evening arrived with a cold wind that bit through my only good coat. I had brushed it clean, polished my boots, even trimmed my beard in the small mirror above my wash basin. I did not know why I bothered. No one would notice whether I came or went. The town hall glowed with lantern light when I arrived. Music spilled through the windows, fiddles and guitars playing some lively tune that made the building seem to pulse with warmth. I stood outside for a long moment, watching shadows move behind the curtains, couples dancing, families laughing, friends embracing. I did not belong in there, but I had already walked all this way and the wind was getting colder, so I pushed through the door before my courage failed completely. The noise hit me first, then the heat from too many bodies packed into one space. Then the smell of apple cider and fresh bread and perfume that women saved for special occasions. No one looked up when I entered. I found my assigned seat at a table near the back corner, furthest from the dance floor. 3 other chairs surrounded the small table, but they were empty. Whoever else was supposed to sit here had apparently found better options. I sat down and folded my hands in my lap and watched the celebration unfold without me. Children chased each other between the adults. Young men asked young women to dance with trembling voices and hopeful eyes. Married couples moved together with the easy rhythm of years spent learning each other's bodies. Everyone belonged to someone. I belonged to no one. An hour passed. I drank cider that someone had left on the refreshment table. I ate a piece of bread that tasted like dust in my mouth. I wondered how long I had to stay before I could leave without seeming rude. The band shifted to a slower song, and the dance floor cleared of children and filled with couples holding each other close. I looked away. Some sights hurt more than others. That was when the chair beside me scraped against the wooden floor. I looked up, startled, certain someone had made a mistake. She stood there with 2 cups of cider in her hands and a nervous smile on her lips. Her hair was the color of autumn leaves, pinned up in a style that was already falling loose. Her dress was simple, dark blue, nothing fancy, but her eyes caught the lantern light and held it, and I forgot how to breathe. "Is this seat taken?" she asked. I shook my head, unable to find words. She sat down beside me, close enough that her sleeve brushed against mine. She placed one of the cider cups in front of me. "You looked like you could use a refill," she said, "and some company." I finally found my voice. "You did not have to do that. I know." She smiled again, and something in my chest shifted, like a door creaking open after being sealed for years. I wanted to. Why? The question came out harsher than I intended. She did not flinch. Because I know what it feels like, she said softly, to sit alone at a table while everyone else dances, to be invited somewhere only because they needed to fill a seat. I stared at her. They invited you for that reason too? She laughed, but there was no bitterness in it. Widow Patterson needed an even number of women for her seating chart. I am always the one they call when their numbers do not work out. I am sorry. Do not be. She turned in her chair to face me more fully. If they had not needed to fill seats, I would not have come tonight, and I would not have seen you sitting here, looking like the loneliest man in all of Texas. Heat crept up my neck. I did not realize I was so obvious, only to someone who recognizes the look. She extended her hand toward me. I am Margaret Holloway, but everyone calls me Maggie. I took her hand gently, aware of how rough my calluses must feel against her soft skin. Elijah Crane, the carpenter, she said. I know, you built the shelves for the schoolhouse last spring. I blinked in surprise. You remember that? I am the teacher. I notice things. She tilted her head, studying me with those bright eyes. You work with such care. Every measurement perfect, every joint smooth, like you are building something sacred instead of just shelves for books. No one had ever noticed how I worked. No one had ever looked closely enough to see. My father was a carpenter, I heard myself say. He taught me that every piece of wood has a purpose. You just have to find it. Maggie nodded slowly. That is a beautiful way to think about it. The band shifted to another song. Around us, the celebration continued. But it felt distant now, like we had slipped into our own small world at this forgotten table in the corner. Why are you really sitting here with me? I asked. I needed to understand. People did not seek me out. People did not choose me. Maggie was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had dropped to something more intimate, more honest. Because I have been watching you for months, Elijah Crane. Every time you come into town for supplies, every time you walk past the schoolhouse on your way to work, I have been watching you carry this sadness like it is a weight strapped to your back. And I have been wondering what happened to make a man's eyes look so empty. My throat tightened. You do not want to know. Maybe not, she admitted. But I want to know you, the you that exists underneath that sadness, the man who builds shelves like they are sacred, the man who came to a dance where he knew no one would speak to him, just because some small part of him has not given up yet. I turned away, blinking hard. The lantern light blurred. I lost my husband, Maggie said quietly. 4 years ago, he was a rancher south of here, caught pneumonia during a cattle drive and never recovered. I looked back at her. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice remained steady. I came to Copper Springs to start over, she continued. To teach children and build a new life, and maybe, someday, remember how to feel something other than grief. It has taken a long time. Some days it still feels impossible. Does it get easier? The question escaped before I could stop it. No, she said honestly, but it gets different. The grief does not shrink. You just grow around it. You learn to carry it differently. I thought about Sarah, about her laugh and her hands and the way she used to hum while cooking breakfast. I thought about the 3 years I had spent trying to outrun her memory, only to find it waiting for me in every quiet moment. Her name was Sarah, I said. The words felt strange in my mouth, like a language I had forgotten how to speak. She was my wife. We were married for 2 weeks before the fever took her. Maggie's hand found mine beneath the table. She did not say she was sorry. She did not offer hollow comfort. She just held on, warm and solid and real. 2 weeks, I continued. That is all we had. 14 days of happiness, and then 36 months of trying to remember what happiness felt like. And now, I looked at her, at the kindness in her face, the understanding in her eyes, the way she sat beside me like she had always belonged there. Now someone sat down next to me and made me feel less alone for the first time. Since I buried her. Maggie's grip tightened on my hand. A tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light. Dance with me, she said. What? Dance with me. Right now. Before you talk yourself out of it. I am a terrible dancer. So am I. She stood, pulling me up with her. We can be terrible together. I let her lead me to the dance floor. I let her place my hand on her waist and rest her own hand on my shoulder. I let the music guide us into a clumsy, shuffling rhythm that bore no resemblance to what the other couples were doing. But for the first time in 3 years, I was not watching from the outside. I was inside the warmth, inside the light, inside the moment. Maggie looked up at me as we swayed. This is nice. We are terrible at this. We are. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. Does that matter? I thought about it, about the people who were probably watching and judging, about the whispers that would follow, about all the reasons I should have stayed in my corner where I belonged. No, I said, it does not matter at all. We danced through 3 more songs. We returned to our table and talked until the cider ran out and the candles burned low. She told me about her students, about the way children's minds worked, about the joy she found in watching them discover new ideas. I told her about wood grain and joinery and the satisfaction of creating something that would outlast me. We talked about grief and healing and the strange guilt of wanting to feel happy again after losing someone we loved. We talked about loneliness and the courage it took to keep showing up to places where no one expected anything from us. We talked until the band packed up their instruments and Widow Patterson began shooing people toward the door. Outside, the wind had died down. Stars scattered across the sky like silver dust. The town lay quiet around us, tucked in for the night. May I walk you home? I asked. Maggie nodded. We walked slowly, stretching the night as long as we could. Her arm linked through mine. Our breath made small clouds in the cold air. Neither of us spoke. The silence felt comfortable, like a blanket we had wrapped around ourselves. Her boarding house appeared too quickly. We stopped at the gate, and she turned to face me. Thank you, she said. For tonight, you are the one who sat down beside me. I should be thanking you, then thank me by doing it again. She stepped closer. Come to the schoolhouse tomorrow afternoon. I will make tea. You can tell me more about sacred shelves. My heart was beating faster than it had any right to. Tomorrow is Sunday, so it is. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Are you busy? No, I admitted. I have not been busy on a Sunday in 3 years. Then come. 3 o'clock. I make terrible tea, but I promise decent conversation. I laughed. The sound surprised me. I had forgotten I could make it. Maggie reached up and touched my face. Her palm was warm against my cold cheek. I closed my eyes and leaned into the contact. Starving for gentleness, I had denied myself for so long. Elijah, she whispered. I opened my eyes. Do not disappear again. Please, I just found you. Something broke open inside me. Something that had been locked tight since a fevered girl breathed her last in a cabin 1,000 miles away. I will be there, I said. 3 o'clock. She rose on her toes and pressed a kiss to my cheek, soft, brief, a promise rather than a goodbye. Then she was gone, slipping through the gate and up the path and into the boarding house. I stood watching long after the door closed behind her. I walked home through the empty streets with something unfamiliar blooming in my chest. It took me several blocks to recognize it. Hope. The cabin felt different when I returned. Still small, still spare, still marked by the solitude I had built around myself. But the shadows seemed less oppressive. The silence seemed less permanent. I lit a candle and sat at my workbench and ran my hands over the piece of oak I had been shaping for weeks without knowing why. Now I knew. A jewelry box, something delicate and beautiful. Something I could give to a woman with autumn hair and understanding eyes. They had invited me just to fill a seat, a warm body for an empty chair at a forgotten table in the corner. But she had sat beside me. She had seen me. She had reached through 3 years of grief and loneliness and touched the part of me that had never quite died. Tomorrow I would go to the schoolhouse. I would drink her terrible tea. I would let myself feel something again. Sarah would have wanted that. I knew it in my bones. She had loved me too much to want me drowning in grief forever. And Maggie had lost someone too. She understood the weight I carried, because she carried her own. Together, maybe we could help each other set those weights down, not forget, never forget, but learn to carry our losses in a way that left room for new love to grow. I worked on the jewelry box until dawn painted the sky pink. My hands moved with care, with purpose, with something that felt almost like joy. For the first time in 3 years, I was looking forward to tomorrow.